Have you ever looked at your dead seedlings in March wondering what went wrong? You planted them at the right time, watered them, put them in a sunny window, checked on them every day. Everything seemed fine for the first week. Little green leaves, stems getting taller, progress. Then suddenly, they're flopping over, or so stretched they look like they're reaching for something they can't find. You didn't make obvious mistakes, just regular care, normal conditions. And yet, here you are with failures, wondering if you're bad at this. Most people who try starting seeds indoors fail, not because they're incompetent, but because the process has hidden failure points nobody warns you about. I help people understand what actually kills seedlings so they can stop repeating mistakes. If you want to figure out why your seeds keep dying and what works, subscribe. Let's start with the first thing that kills most indoor seedlings: timing and light. People think they can start seeds 8, 10, sometimes 12 weeks before their last frost, because more time indoors means stronger plants. That's what it seems like it should mean. Except that's not how it works. Not even close. When you start too early, seedlings outgrow their containers before it's warm enough to transplant outside. You end up with leggy, stretched out plants reaching for light they're not getting enough of. And that's the other part. Window light. Window light seems fine. It's bright. You can see perfectly well. The seedlings are right there in the sun. But light intensity drops exponentially the further you get from the source. A few feet from a window, you're getting maybe 10% of the light at the glass. And even at the glass, you're not getting the intensity seedlings need to grow compact and strong. So you get pale, stretched seedlings with weak stems. They look alive, they're green, they're growing. People think it's working. But these seedlings are already compromised. When you transplant them outside, they shock easily, blow over in wind, struggle to adjust. A lot just die within the first week because they never developed the strength they needed. Remember when you could stick seeds in a pot on a windowsill and they'd actually grow into plants? That still happens sometimes, but the success rate is terrible, and most people don't realize their seedlings are failing until it's too late to start over. You're looking at seedlings 6, 8 inches tall after 3 weeks thinking you're doing great when those seedlings should be half that height with thicker stems and darker leaves. The illusion is that growth equals success. It doesn't. Vertical growth without proper light just means weak plants that won't survive transition to outdoor conditions. So people realize the windowsill isn't working, and that's when they start spending money on solutions that don't actually solve the problem. They buy a grow light, Amazon LED panels marketed for seed starting, $25, maybe $40 for a bigger one. Good Reviews says it's full spectrum. Pictures of healthy seedlings right there in the product photos. Looks perfect. Except these cheap lights are massively underpowered. They'll keep plants alive, sure, but alive and thriving are different things. You're still getting leggy seedlings, just slightly less leggy than the windowsill. Then the seed starting trays and kits. $15 for a basic tray with tiny cells and a humidity dome. $30 for the quote zero version. Heat mats to warm the soil. Another $20 or $30. It all seems reasonable. These are tools designed specifically for seeds, so obviously they'll work. Wrong. Most tiny cell trays are too small. Seedlings outgrow them in 3 or 4 weeks, and you're transplanting into bigger containers indoors before you can even think about going outside. More containers, more soil, more space in your house. Humidity domes are fine for germination, but people leave them on too long, creating perfect environments for disease. Heat mats help seeds germinate faster, which sounds great until you realize faster germination just means more time struggling under inadequate light. You're out $75, maybe $100 for this basic setup. Not a huge amount, but it's not working the way you thought. Seedlings still weak, still stretching, some dying anyway. Meanwhile, that money could have gone toward a setup that actually works, or you could have waited and direct seeded outside and saved the hassle. But you've already invested this much, already put in the time. So you keep going, thinking maybe you just need better equipment. And this is just the basic stuff. People who get serious about it start spending real money. If you really want to waste money, get into premium equipment. Real grow lights, not cheap LED panels. Full spectrum systems that actually put out enough light. $150 for a decent one, $200, $300 if you want coverage or adjustable settings. These do work better, significantly better. But here's the thing. Most home gardeners don't need this level. You're starting seeds for a home garden, not running a commercial greenhouse. People get convinced by forums and YouTube that they need professional grade lighting to have any chance, so they drop $200 on a grow light for what? 20 seedlings? Maybe 40 if they're ambitious? Then the shelving systems. Multi-tier wire racks to stack trays under multiple lights. $80, $100, sometimes $150 depending on size. You need somewhere to put all this, and your windowsill obviously won't work anymore. So now you've got this whole setup taking up space in your basement or spare room. Fans for air circulation because you read that stagnant air causes problems. Another $20, $30 for a couple of small fans. Timers, so lights run on automatic schedules, $15, $20. Humidity monitors and thermometers to track environment. Another $25, $40 for digital ones. Add it up, and you're looking at $300, $400, maybe $500 for a full home seed starting setup. And yes, this equipment actually works. Seedlings you grow under proper lights with good air circulation are way healthier than what you'd get under a $30 light. But does that mean you'll succeed? Not necessarily. Because even with all this, you can still kill everything if you don't know what you're doing. Perfect light setup, still over water, ideal temperature, still pick wrong varieties. You're paying for capability you haven't learned to use yet. Equipment doesn't teach technique. Speaking of wasting money, let's talk about the seeds themselves. People buy expensive heirloom packets, $4, $5, sometimes $6 when standard varieties are $2 or $3. And look, there's nothing wrong with heirlooms if you know what you're doing. But a lot of these are harder to germinate, pickier about conditions, slower growing. You're setting yourself up for more difficulty when you're already struggling with basics. Then there's seed starting kits with 12 or 15 different varieties, $30, $40, $50 for a collection. You're probably not going to successfully grow indoors anyway. People buy these because they seem like good value and they like variety, but half those seeds are varieties that don't even benefit from indoor starting. Tomatoes and peppers, those are perfect for starting indoors. Long growing season, transplant well, relatively forgiving. Herbs like basil and parsley, also good starters. But squash, melons, root crops like carrots and beets, these either don't transplant well or germinate so quickly. Outdoors, there's no point starting inside. You're wasting money on seeds that should be direct seeded in the garden, and people don't research this. They just buy a kit with all these varieties and try to start everything indoors, because that's what they think you're supposed to do. Then they wonder why their squash seedlings are struggling or root crops aren't developing right. It's because those seeds don't work with indoor starting. They need to go straight into ground outside. Nobody tells you this when they're selling seeds. They just want you buying as many packets as possible. So you end up with seeds you're setting up to fail, paying premium prices for varieties needing more skill than you have, starting plants indoors that don't need it. Even if you buy right seeds and have decent equipment, there's still ways to kill everything. Here's what actually kills most seedlings: overwatering. Not light, not temperature, not equipment quality. Overwatering. This is the number one killer, and most people have no idea they're doing it. People think seedlings need constant moisture. They see soil looking a little dry on top, and they water. They check every day, sometimes twice a day, and if that top layer doesn't look wet, they add more water. They're being attentive, caring for their plants, except they're drowning them. Seedlings need moist soil, not wet soil. Huge difference. Wet soil doesn't have air pockets. Roots can't breathe. Root rot starts within 24, maybe 48 hours of soil staying too wet. And once root rot starts, your seedlings are done. Then there's damping off, fungal disease that thrives in wet conditions and kills overnight. Literally overnight. You check seedlings in the evening, they look fine. Wake up the next morning and half have collapsed at the soil line. Stems dark and pinched. Completely dead. That's damping off. And it comes from keeping soil too wet. Visual signs show up before collapse, but most people miss them. The stem starts darkening right where it meets soil, gets thin there, almost pinched looking. By the time you notice, it's usually too late. The fungus has already compromised stem tissue. And here's the psychology. People care too much. They want seedlings to do well, so they check constantly and water at first sign of dryness. But the top inch can look dry while the bottom is waterlogged. You can't see what's happening down where roots are. You're making decisions based on surface conditions that don't reflect what's actually going on. The cycle is brutal. Overwater, fungus develops, seedlings die, and you think maybe you didn't water enough. So next time, you water even more. And overwatering isn't the only environmental thing people get wrong. Temperature is huge, and most people don't even think about it. Room temperature during the day is fine. 68, 70, maybe 72 degrees. Seedlings are happy with that. But at night, especially near a window, temperature can drop 10, 15 degrees. Windows radiate cold at night, even when closed. Seedlings need consistent temperatures between 65 and 75 degrees. Temperature swings stress them, slow growth, make them susceptible to disease. And people put seedlings right by the window because that's where light is. But that's also where temperature fluctuates most. Then there's air circulation, or lack of it. Stagnant air is a breeding ground for fungal diseases. No air movement means humidity stays high right at the soil surface where fungus thrives. It also means seedlings never develop strong stems. They need gentle air movement to trigger a response where they thicken stems and become sturdier. Without that, you get weak, floppy stems that can't support the plant. But people don't think about air circulation. They seal seedlings under humidity domes for weeks because they think high humidity is good. It is good for germination. But once seeds sprout, you need to introduce air movement. Most people leave those domes on way too long, creating perfect conditions for disease. The contradiction is seedlings need humidity, but also need air circulation. You're balancing moisture in the air with movement of that air, and most people don't realize they're managing a microenvironment. They think they're just watering plants. But you're controlling temperature, humidity, airflow, light intensity. All these factors interact. Overwater plus no air movement equals fungus. Add temperature swings, and you've got a perfect storm guaranteeing failure. Even one of these problems can kill seedlings. All three together, no chance. So you've got equipment you might not need, seeds you shouldn't have bought, environmental factors you can't easily control. Let's say somehow you manage to avoid all those problems and actually grow decent seedlings indoors. You're still not done. You still have to get them outside without killing them. And this is where a lot of people fail right at the finish line. Transplant shock. This is what happens when you move seedlings from controlled indoor environment to chaotic outdoor environment too quickly. Direct sunlight is way more intense than even the best grow lights. Wind is something seedlings have never experienced if you haven't been running fans. Temperature swings outdoors are dramatic compared to your stable indoor temperature. Your seedlings are not ready for any of this. There's a process called hardening off. You're supposed to gradually expose seedlings to outdoor conditions over 7 to 10 days minimum. Start with an hour or two in shade, bring them back inside. Next day, a little more time, a little more sun. Slowly increase exposure until they can handle full outdoor conditions. This gives them time to adjust, to thicken cell walls, to develop resilience they need to survive outside. Most people skip this or rush it. They give seedlings 2, maybe 3 days of partial outdoor exposure and figure that's good enough. It's not. You transplant them into the garden, and within 48 hours, they're sunburned. Leaves turn white or brown. Wind tears them up. Temperature shock stresses them so badly they stop growing or just die. You spent 8 weeks, maybe 10 weeks growing these seedlings indoors, invested time, money, effort. Then you killed them in 2 days because you rushed the transition. The timing trap comes back here too. People start seeds too early. Seedlings get too big indoors. They're desperate to get them outside, so they skip proper hardening off. The impatience that created the problem makes the final outcome worse. So where does this leave us? Wrong timing. Creating leggy seedlings, inadequate light making them weak, expensive equipment that doesn't guarantee success, wrong seed varieties that shouldn't be started indoors anyway, overwatering killing roots and inviting fungus, temperature swings and poor air circulation creating disease, and then transplant shock at the very end, killing whatever managed to survive everything else. That's why 90% of indoor seed starting attempts fail. The solution isn't buying more equipment. It's not that complicated, really. You can either keep doing what everyone else does and waste money and time on methods that don't work, or you can learn what actually works and stop making it harder than it needs to be. Here's what actually works. Start fewer varieties. 3, maybe 4 types maximum. Only start the ones that genuinely benefit from indoor starting. Tomatoes, peppers, herbs like basil. That's it. Everything else can be direct seeded outside, and you'll save yourself the trouble. Start 6 weeks before your last frost date. Not 10 weeks, not 12 weeks, 6 weeks. This keeps seedlings from outgrowing their space and getting desperate to go outside before conditions are right. Use proper containers with drainage holes, not those tiny cell packs, actual pots that give roots room to develop. Water from the bottom by setting pots in a tray of water. Let them soak it up, then remove them. This prevents overwatering the top layer where fungus grows. Check soil weight, not appearance. A pot that feels light needs water. A pot that still feels heavy doesn't, even if the top looks dry. Keep seedlings in stable temperature areas away from windows. You want consistent 65 to 75 degrees, not the temperature swings you get near glass. Run a small fan on low for air circulation, but not blasting directly at seedlings. Don't get me wrong, hardening off matters. When it's time to transplant, harden them off for the full 10 days. Don't rush this. Start with shade. Gradually increase sun exposure. Gradually increase time outside. Take the full week and a half. Or just direct seed most things outside. Squash, beans, cucumbers, melons, all the root crops. These don't need or want indoor starting. Plant them directly in the garden when soil is warm enough, and you'll skip all the indoor complexity. figure out which seeds actually need the indoor head start. Most of them don't.